It's time to ease into 2024 by resetting all of your high school counseling things. Hit follow on this uniquely curated podcast playlist with 6 flashback episodes from high school counseling conversations to reset your year. Let's use some tangible strategies to make sure your new semester is run more smoothly, enjoyably, and effectively. On this podcast playlist, you're going to discover how to reset yourself, your admin relationships, your surroundings, your counseling team, and your systems. There's even a bonus pep talk episode in here because I'm cheering for you big time. Prep yourself for a successful second half of the school year by signing up to get your reset playlist by going to counselorclique.com/reset playlist. Now back to the show. I've never done a podcast episode like this before, but there's a first time for everything, right? I want to take you inside the Clique Collaborative, my high school counseling membership. Now, of course, I already have a tour of the inner workings of the membership and the stuff that you get inside, and I can link that YouTube video in the show notes for you. I also have a website that tells you more about the membership. But what if you could listen in on a community aspect of the membership as well? Each quarter, I host a Clique Collab Live where members are invited to show up and show out. We meet live, but we also record it so that if you have to miss, you can revisit it or listen on the private podcast when it's convenient for you. Now that the Clique Collaborative is open year-round, I want to give you a chance to get in before our next Clique Collab Live that happens in February. You can always check us out and see if it's a good fit for you by going to cliquecollab.com. So get comfy, pretend like you're listening in without even having your camera on, and join us for a snippet of August's Clique Collab Live. After listening, if you'd like to join us inside or learn more about this high school counseling membership, visit cliquecollab.com or check out the show notes for some quick links. You got into this profession to make a difference in your students' lives, but you're spread thin by all of the things that keep getting added to your to-do list. I can't create more hours in the day, but I can invite you into my Counselor Clique where you'll finally catch your breath. Come with me as we unpack creative ideas and effective strategies that'll help you be the counselor who leaves a lifelong impact on your students. I'm Lauren Tingle, your high school counseling hype girl, here to help you energize your school counseling program and remind you of how much you love your job. You could come up with something that I'm going to ask right here, like a challenge as you have headed back into school, or maybe as your team has come together, if you have co-counselors or something and you're starting to plan or do schedules or 504s or whatever that looks like as you're prepping for back to school. Because I think when we put brains together and say like, hey, this has been hard for me. Does anyone have something I haven't thought about to make this better or have a solution? That's one of my favorite parts of like all getting together is being able to ask those things and hear feedback from other people. So does anybody have something that like comes to mind that has been a challenge? I know we've heard like new administrators, new and fresh and new is like kind of a challenge that, I mean, it's going to happen. That's inevitable. But anything else that people are like running into?
I'm starting multiple clubs this year, which is new for me, or groups, small groups. And especially with we're more virtual, we're not in person. So that is a benefit. So it can include kids from all 7 different counties, but it's always nicer when we can all be together. So I'm worried that I might have bit off too much than I can chew. So I'm a little bit nervous about that. One of them is a carryover from last year. It's a Rotary Interact Club. It's like the high school version of Rotary. I've learned a lot, especially with my leadership kids. They're going to be taking over more of that, which I'm thrilled with, and it'll be good for them as well.
I feel like that's always a sign of a good club when you've got some good student leaders who want to own part of it.
Yes, and I do. So that's good. When we went to a couple of training things that Rotary offered, and that definitely helped because I didn't have any connection with our Rotary Club who was technically sponsoring us, which was difficult, and we had no budget last year. So finally this year they're giving us some seed money that we can do some community projects with. But I'm also starting a career exploration club, one for high school, one for middle school, and a college application club, starting a GSA club with a parent who wants to help lead that, and a middle school coding club. And we're going to be using the free Girls Who Code curriculum. It's free. You just sign up for it and it gives you the whole curriculum. But I'm not a computer science person, so I'm just a little bit nervous. And hopefully I know just a little bit more than a middle school student.
Right. You'll be the expert because you know 10% more than them.
That's what I'm hoping for. But I could be very easily proven wrong, but that's okay.
Here's my question for you. Do you find that students engage in those well, even though it's like virtual because they want some sort of connection? Or is it hard to like get students to like show up to virtual things or connect with each other or talk? Or like do they get on video and do they share? Or what is the like dynamic like?
See, and that's what's hard. I did the Rotary last year and we started our meetings kind of a hybrid in-person and virtual. So my sister schools have some learning centers that I was able to use some of their space that was closer to a couple of them. And then we had tech come in. Have you heard of the owl thing? So it has like a camera that can follow the speaker, even if the speaker is moving.
Oh, cool.
Kind of trips me out, but there you go. It's very cool. And then other students were virtually at home and I struggled with that. It just felt very disjointed. When we do have our virtual meetings, a lot of the kids don't turn on their cameras, which is difficult, at least for me, and just how engaged they are, or even if they're there, or did they go out and get a drink of water and they're not even there.
Right.
So, but with the Rotary Club, we all get together once a month and either do a fun activity or do a community service project. And that's when a lot of those connections are made. And the more we do those, the more connected those students feel. But students keep asking every year. They want some clubs to meet other homeschool. They call themselves homeschooled, even though we are a private school or a public school. They want to meet other public school kids. And
so they're asking for it. They just need to like actively participate when they're there. But I guess they're like timid and nervous. When you're not used to like being on camera like that or making friends virtually, it can be kind of weird.
Yeah. And how do I pick a time that's going to be good for every single student that's out there? I do have a large portion of my kids that take dual enrollment classes at a variety of community colleges where I am. So I'm trying to pick Friday for club meetings because community colleges typically don't have classes on Fridays. So
that's good. And then they can know to expect that. Does anybody else sponsor clubs or coach a sport or anything?
So I'm an advisor for Bring Change to Mind. It's fighting the stigma on mental health. And that was something the students have asked for. It's a really good program. They actually give the club a $500, grant to promote like mental health on campus. And they'll come and they'll do like a school-wide event, or they have like a club portal that has tons of information and resources. You get free access to Headspace to all club members, but I think it's really good. This is our second year in the club. It's new to us, but they've been around like with other states, and the students are receptive and they enjoy it.
Wait, tell us what the name of that is again, because that sounds awesome.
Bring Change to Mind, BC2M, and they are really awesome. And then they have a summit that they have once a year, and they want to encourage all the students to go, and they'll provide transportation. There's one that's going to happen at Berkeley this year, and they're actually going to come and provide transportation for all of our students to go. Well, the students in our club.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool.
And the fact that they give you a stipend to like do stuff on your campus and stuff, and to get those, I feel like that's can be a very student-led club, like you said, because students are receptive to that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else, any clubs or sports or anything?
Well, I lead a grief group every spring, but I also am an adult advisor for something called Sources of Strength. I don't know if you guys have heard of that before, but it is a national suicide prevention initiative. It's not really a club, but it kind of operates like a club, and it involves peer leaders. So we get students, and we try to get a student group for the school year that looks like every student. Every lunchroom table is how we kind of say we want the peer leaders to look like the rest of our students in our schools, so that we have every different type of group of students involved. And it's really cool because we don't talk about doom and gloom and all of that about suicide. We talk about strengths. The idea is we all have strengths that we use to get through tough times. It's strength-based and talking about reminding students of what they do have and trying to connect people to trusted adults in our building. So it's really cool.
I'm obsessed with that.
Yeah.
That from the way that you recruit the peer leaders to how you focus
on strength.
the strengths. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I feel like I've heard of that before. Like that sounds very familiar to me, sources of strength, but I hadn't heard of it recently.
Sourcesofstrength.org. And again, I think it started out west somewhere, Northwest, or maybe South Dakota. It started somewhere out there, but it is a national program. And our county does give us a stipend, or they write grants because it is for mental health, but it's very positive, upbeat. And if you guys are ever looking for something, check it out. They give you templates for different campaigns to do in your school, for positive friends, for mental health, family support, healthy activities. Those are all these little spokes around a really colorful wheel that we focus on. And we just really do fun things, bulletin boards, social media. Just generosity is another thing. And so sometimes we give out little notes before final exams saying good luck on your final exams, and just it's really positive, and I love it because I get to know all the kids a lot better than just some of the things that I do in my office.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And I love that they have like templates and stuff, because that feels way less overwhelming, especially if you're like thinking about dipping your toe into taking something else on. But if you ever have like admin who are pressuring you to own something in the school, besides your job, I know that happens some places, like you need to be involved in something. That sounds like a thing that would double dip with your job. Like you said, like you get to know more students because of what you're doing, and it aligns with your mission as a counselor.
And they train you too. So there's training and everything. So
look at you. You're just their spokesperson right now. I hope they know.
Well, I kind of got voluntold to do it about 5 years ago,
right.
But we're running it like a club. So we've started, kids get into it with the leadership opportunities, and it's fun. So I enjoy it. But yeah, they train you too. I think it's a great program.
I love that. Great idea so far.
I want to introduce you to a new way to support your students that'll save you tons of time this college application season. College Vine's AI letter recommendation tool is about to change the game for the way you get your students' letters completed. College Vine has been around for 10 years, so they've had some time to perfect this tool. What makes it different from other AI generators? This one is programmed specifically with high school counselors in mind and knows the questions to ask you to get the right voice, the desired length of the recommendation letter, and the perfect personal touches to match your writing style. Oh, and the best part? It's free. I promise, you're going to love experimenting with the way you write letters of recommendation from here on out. Head over to counselorclique.com/collegevine to get started with this free tool today.
Okay, if no one has anything else on that, what other challenges have y'all run into so far? Because I feel like we have so many different perspectives here.
Well, for me, like I said, we have a new counselor starting tomorrow, and the kids come back tomorrow. Our admin, we only have one person, and she's out on maternity leave. So we're working with the interim. We call him a dean instead of the principal. So, and the interim is coming from another building. So it's just been kind of challenging, and I feel
blind leading the blind.
Yes. So I'm just looking forward to be a very hectic start to the year, even though it was already hectic last year. It's going to be very challenging because she doesn't really know the high school like that. She's a curriculum and instruction person. So at the middle school or intermediate. So she doesn't really know the high school. She's doing the best she can. But at this point, our pathways person, they moved him to another building, a lot of staff changes. So it's just going to be challenging all the way around.
What are you telling yourself, or what can you tell this new co-counselor of yours? Because she's brand new. You were just her last year. Like, what are you going to make sure that you hold her hand with and tell her as you're starting the school year?
I'm going to have to hold her hand with everything because we're going to have to help each other. But no, I feel like, I have a lot to offer because, like I said, I was kind of thrown into everything. I don't know, because she's a new counselor. She's never been a counselor before. So she worked with communities and schools, which I kind of forget what that does, but she works with high school students to some degree. So I'm hoping that with that,
she's got like the natural, like relational piece.
Yes.
And that's hard to teach, you hope that somebody comes in with that already.
Right. Yes. So hopefully so, but what do I have to, what was the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, like, what words of wisdom are you going to be like telling her as you're like, to make sure she shows back up on Monday? Like,
I'm going to tell her, you got to show back up on Monday.
Because I can't do it myself.
No, I'm just going to let her know she's not alone. We are in this together. And like you just said, I was her last year, so I get it. And they, the interim told me Friday, she's like, yeah, Monday, I want you to show her the nuts and bolts of the school.
You're like, in my spare time while I'm meeting new students and enrolling new people. And
exactly. Yeah. So we'll get through it. I'm looking forward to it though. So my goal for this week is to be optimistic.
Well, I feel like you seem like an optimistic person in general. So I think that you are going to nail it.
I try. It doesn't always happen. Especially when I get to school, it'll be a different story, but I'm being optimistic this week.
Yes, you're telling yourself this now. Yes. You have the accountability of this group. You've spoken it out loud, and we're going to ask you about it.
I appreciate it.
Anyone else?
I'm with several others. We have a whole new admin team this year. So they're not exactly sure what they're doing. And so one other person and myself are trying to train them on lots of different things, even how to use our SIS and how to look students up and whose job is to do what. So that is definitely another added complication as we're all trying to do whatever we need to do. So I feel you.
And like, you don't have the same job as them. So it's like you're training them in little pieces of things that, like, little tidbits that you remember talking to the old admin about, or
yes. She was site manager. She's now business tech. And so she and I are trying to train the new registrar and the new, all of those kind of things. So
right.
It's a lot. Just breathe. I just breathe. When in doubt, I just breathe.
You'll make it through. You'll live to the end of everyone will be in classes and it'll settle down soon. And then you'll get to do the things that you thought you were going to do as a school counselor.
Can I just say it's okay to cry sometimes too?
Totally.
I'm saying it funny, not funny, but I did that twice last week. So, and yeah, I made it through this, not last week, the week before.
Or also like laugh so you don't cry. Like when you're with a co-counselor or someone that you're like, this is so chaotic. Like if we don't laugh about how ridiculous the situation is, like we are going to cry right now.
Yeah. I wish I still had a co-counselor this year, but I don't. Because you asked about challenges. Mm-hmm. Besides like the admin piece, because I feel like I tell myself every day, I'm like, it's going to get better. It's just the beginning of the school year, right? You have to get over the hump there, if you will. And then it's going to get better. It's going to get better as we progress. Things will transition and it'll, smooth out. So that part aside, I'm hoping, because I know you guys are all at high school, and I know my high school situation is a little bit different in that it's alternative ed. If there's anybody who's worked with like students who are maybe not as, and I know we all probably have in some degree, but they're not as receptive, or they don't want to talk to you, or they just hate school in general. Like they use colorful language every day and, F this school, things like that. So I'm trying some of those students were there last year, so I'm okay with those. But then the new ones, I'm trying to make those connections with them and get them to be comfortable. Because to me, they don't see me as the counselor. I don't know why. I think because in our office, sometimes I was the only person there. So I'm trying to figure out, because like when the teachers told me they saw me coming into class and they were like, oh my God, it's Miss Butcher. Like somebody's in trouble. And I'm like,
that's not what I do.
Why do they think that? So I'm like, I'm working on a presentation. Like this is what the counselor does. This is what I don't do. But yeah, if anybody
that's a great start
into like connecting with students who have even anger issues and things like that.
Yeah, I have thoughts, but I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts first.
I think starting small is helpful. Like just the little interactions that you have, like just little conversations that aren't like, we're going to get into counseling right now, just to like check on them. Like, how are you? I think the little things is kind of, I don't want to say it's not like it wears them down eventually, but it's just like the small ways that you interact with them, that you're showing them. And that's what you do, that you're showing them like, I care and genuinely care about what's going on with you. And I think that they probably haven't had very many people in life that have done that. So it takes a while to break those barriers down. So I think just starting with like check-ins, like easy, like 5 minutes or less. How are things? Let's look at your grades. That's kind of an easy way to get in there. Like we're not in trouble. I'm just checking on you. Like, how are things going?
Yeah. I did that last year, and by the end of the year, it was good with most of them. But then some of those ones graduated. Mm-hmm. So I'm starting all over again, I guess, kind of. It just,
I think, encourage you think back on like those stories and those relationships, because I'm sure not all of them started like rainbows and butterflies. Like they probably were the ones with walls up and wanted nothing to do with you. But by the end, you can see like, okay, they've softened and there's a relationship there.
Yeah. Cause we had a couple that were like, they've even like been on probation before, but by the end of the year, they clamped their axe. I'm talking to them about graduating, and then some of them graduating, and they'll, even when they come back to camp, they're like, Miss Butcher, like, so I know I did something right. But then like some of the other ones are like, first thing in the morning, they're like, F this school, like F everybody who works here. And I'm like, okay.
You're like, I have bad days too sometimes. I know.
Yeah. So anyways, I see stuff on Teacher Pay Teacher, and I'm like, man, I want to do all these things, with students and these activities. But then I'm like, none of these are going to work with the student population that I have. So that's what I'm looking for, something that will, and I've got games and things and, different.
I want you to look up Informed Decisions on TPT. Her name is Leslie, and she was on my podcast before, but Informed Decisions, she works in New York City and has like just all different types of students. And I feel like that's like something she really thinks about, of students that it's like tough to break through with relationships with them. So I don't have anything like her activities off the top of my mind, but she would be a good person to look up.
Okay. I'm looking her up. Thank you. Appreciate it.
About a year and a half ago, we were the educational provider for a residential treatment, like a group home for juvenile hall kids. And, for me, and I would be at the group home once or twice a week. My school, we can be really creative with electives. And I mean, these are all credit recovery kids, so they don't really have much room for electives. They're just trying to get the kind of the bare minimum for graduation. Mm-hmm. But I did offer electives to them. And I had this one kid who was tough as nails and F-bombs everywhere. And she was really interested in marine biology. So I found a marine biology online class for her. And she was just, oh my gosh, you listened to me. And unfortunately, she started it, she really liked it. And of course, then she, as group homes do, she got moved to another group home. So unfortunately, we couldn't continue that for her. But, kind of like what Katie said, trying to remember those little things that they tell you of how was your day off visiting with your mom, or how was, the dinner your group home made together, those kind of things, to remember that. I would try to give them choices, within reason. So it was a win-win. No matter what they chose was a win. But they still, if you're living in a group home, or if you're that credit deficient kids at juvenile hall or whatever, they don't have choices. And the fact that if somebody can give them a choice makes them feel like they have just a little bit more power over in their lives, or control in their lives. So that helped me when I was working with these kids. But it's tough. It's a tough population. I love them. I mean, they're all still just kids. They've just been through crazy traumatic histories. Sometimes they'll tell you about it, sometimes they don't, but it's tough. And there were times where I would go home and cry. So I get that. But I'd be back there the next day.
Those are great points.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback off Christine. Actually, before social work, I worked at an STRTP, which is a group home, but the kiddos were very, very tough. And I agree with you. Like just the little things like, hi, oh, you did your makeup great today. You look at your outfit you put together for school. Little things go a long way. And then keeping up to whatever you guys had agreed to do. So even if that's just checking in on a class, like they really anchor to all of that.
I think because I was there last year, I think working with the students I'll be okay with that part. I think just the admin duties that I think I have are kind of weighing me down with balance. I'm trying to find a balance of those. And I want to do all these classroom things. And I haven't really got into that yet, or like send out a needs assessment, like for students and maybe for staff. So anyways, I'm going to work on those things. Yeah.
Well, I think just staying clear, like you're saying, like your desire is to be the counselor, and you want that for your students too. Like you don't want them to think you're the disciplinarian, you're the administrator, but with the roles in your school, it sounds like it kind of can get blurred sometimes. Like you are the one in charge, but as much as you can, like remain the counselor so that you've earned that right to like speak into those things and to go into the classroom and to be seen as the counselor that you are and that you want to be.
Yeah. I think being the admin designee, since there's nobody else there, last year a teacher said she thought the students were dealing drugs in the bathroom. And I was the admin designee that day. There was nobody else there but me. So I had to search their backpacks.
No.
I had to call the SRO to come and stand there with me in the principal's office.
Oh, that's terrible.
They hated me after that. And I'm just like, I think it's just a challenging school site. So I think for me, I'm trying to decide if I'm going to be able to stay there. So, because I always wanted to, high school counseling is what I wanted to do. But I'm sure, as you guys know, like, what's open and available, like that's a learning opportunity. Mm-hmm. And that's how I saw it. But I did it last year. I could have left last year, but I had a great experience. So then I'm like, no, I'm going to stay for these kids. And
maybe see how this year goes. And
the admin changes, I think, is what's kind of tripping me up a little bit. But anyways, that's why I joined, because I found the Clique Collaborative last year. But it was after being unemployed all summer. So I'm like, okay, I can't really do that right now, but I want to learn and I want to follow. And then this year I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to learn more. So
we're glad that you're here. Thanks for listening. I hope you got to feel like a fly on the wall in our conversation. There are truly some extraordinary counselors inside the Clique Collaborative doing amazing things in their high school. It's such a gift for me to know them and for us to get to come together to troubleshoot and share wins and brainstorm. I don't take any of these conversations for granted, and they absolutely light me up. So I hope you left with a little bit of wind under your wings as you enjoy your winter break. If a high school counselor community sounds interesting to you in the least bit, I'd encourage you to come check out the Clique Collaborative, cliquecollab.com. I hope I get to see you inside. Thanks for listening to today's episode of High School Counseling Conversations. All the links I talked about today can be found in the show notes and also at counselorclique.com/podcast. Be sure to hit follow wherever you listen to your podcast so that you never miss a new episode. Connect with me over on Instagram. Feel free to send me a DM at counselorclique. That's CLIQUE. I'll see you next week.